You've heard it a million times, right? Don't judge me. We say it, we hear it, it's everywhere. But what if that simple phrase is more than just a request for a little understanding? The source material we're digging into today makes a pretty bold claim that our fear of judging has become a kind of weapon, and it's quietly changing everything: our society, our families, and even how we think. So, let's get into it.
And that really brings us to the central question from our source text. Is this whole no judgment thing actually helping us build a better, more tolerant world? Or is it maybe backfiring and causing some real harm we didn't intend? That's the big tension we're going to unpack here.
All right, so the source we're looking at calls this whole thing the "don't judge me" problem. The core idea is that the word judge, which used to be a pretty neutral word, sometimes even a positive one, has now been turned into a weapon we use in our everyday conversations.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The author talks about this concept they call a judgment detector. The idea is that we all have this little internal alarm now. So imagine a friend says, "Hey, maybe that's not the best way to spend your money." Instead of hearing the advice, that alarm goes off. We don't hear concern, we hear an attack. And the conversation immediately shifts from being about finances to being about, "Are you judging me?" And just like that, any helpful point gets completely lost.
So, to make their case, the author takes us right back to the basics. What does the word judgment even mean, really? Well, at its heart, it's just about discernment. It's the ability to make a smart decision. It's something we all do hundreds of times a day, from deciding what's for lunch to figuring out if a situation feels safe. It's a basic survival tool.
And this slide right here shows what the author says is the most crucial difference. On one side, you have exercising judgment. That's a tool, a necessary skill for thinking clearly. But on the other side, you have being judgmental. And that's the ugly, biased prejudice that has caused so much suffering in the world. The author's big argument is that we've become so terrified of being the thing on the right that we're accidentally throwing away the essential tool we have on the left. So where does this confusion have the biggest impact? According to our source, the consequences are showing up most clearly in the way we're raising our kids.
The source points to this modern philosophy in parenting, one that's backed by some child development experts, that says you should avoid judging a child's choices to protect their self-esteem. So the idea is to negotiate instead of guide. Rather than setting firm boundaries, the parent kind of hopes the child will find their way to the right answer on their own, all so they don't feel bad about themselves.
Now, this is where the source makes some of its most powerful claims. It draws a direct line between this no judgment philosophy and some pretty serious negative trends in society. And it's important to be clear, these are correlations that the author of our source material is pointing out.
The author connects this lack of guidance to some really concerning stuff. They link it to rising obesity, saying it's because children's food choices aren't guided. They point to the sexualization of kids in media and fashion. And, most seriously, they correlate it with the rise in adolescent suicide, depression, and confusion, arguing that it comes from a lack of a clear moral direction. The source also adds that there are a lot of commercial interests that are more than happy to take advantage of that confusion.
And this isn't just about kids. The author argues that this way of thinking is bleeding into the adult world, creating what they call chaos and confusion in the adult arena.
Here's the point. The author says that "don't judge me" has basically become this get-out-of-jail-free card. It can be used to shield almost any kind of behavior, even if it's really self-destructive, from any kind of helpful critique. But, as the text points out, making a bad choice has consequences, whether someone calls you on it or not. Those consequences will always find you.
This leads to a really powerful question the author asks. When we feel that judgmental antenna go up, what's really going on inside? What are we so afraid of hearing about ourselves? The source suggests that if we can be honest with ourselves about that answer, it could be, in their words, potentially liberating.
So why? How did we get here? Why, as a culture, are we so incredibly sensitive to the idea of being judged? The source text offers up two very different reasons for what's going on.
Okay, so the author gives us two possible explanations. The first is about society. It comes from a really good place, a sincere desire to get rid of prejudice. The second reason is what the author calls a spiritual perspective. It's the idea that our good intentions are being hijacked by unseen forces. Let's break down each of these.
So, reason number one. It starts with a goal we can all agree is noble, our society's real effort to stamp out prejudice. But the author argues that this sincere desire has been exploited. It's been twisted to make it okay to legitimize behaviors that might actually be harmful, both to individuals and to society, all under that big banner of non-judgment.
The second reason takes a sharp turn, from the social to the spiritual. From the author's specific viewpoint, our genuine desire to be tolerant has created a kind of spiritual vacuum, and they suggest that unseen dark forces are using our good intentions as a perfect cover to inject confusion and what they call moral decay into our culture.
And this brings us right to the author's final point, which is framed as a very deep and serious spiritual warning.
At the end of the day, this is the core lesson the author wants us to take away. Even our best intentions can be twisted and used against us. The source connects this idea directly to the Lord's Prayer, pointing to the line, "Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil," as a warning about this exact kind of trap.
To really drive the point home, the author leaves us with this powerful quote from the writer Abdrashan. It argues that facing and judging evil isn't something we should avoid. Actually, it's presented as the only path forward. Let us recognize evil at whatever cost, for in the recognition of evil lies the redemption for those who are of good will. And so we end up back where we started, but with a much sharper question. The source doesn't give us an easy answer. Instead, it leaves us with a challenge. In our sincere desire to be good, tolerant people, how do we tell the difference? Which ideas deserve freedom and acceptance, and which ones demand the clear-eyed exercise of judgment? That's a question worth thinking about.